All right, and welcome back to another episode of Johnny on the Track, and this is an exciting one. I am super excited to have this week's guest on the show. This guy races literally anything that has wheels. Some of that includes late models, Indy Pro Series, Formula BMW, NASCAR Xfinity Series, you name it. This guy has probably done it. Oh, and on top of that, people, he is a professional skydiver and stunt driver. You probably saw him a couple of weeks ago, I think now, at Las Vegas, doing that big skydive in his driver intro. He is Matt Jaskol. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, man, thanks for the intro, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, a lot of racing you've done in your career, so many different cars, so many different series. Where did this love come from?
I think like a lot of drivers, man, it started when I was super young, right? It goes back to when I was only 5 years old. It all started mostly in motor, like dirt bikes and four-wheelers. So my family was always kind of a gearhead family. We weren't your typical traditional family, right? Well, traditional for racing people, but not the average American family. So, every holiday, every like Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff, we loaded up the four-wheelers and we went out to like the dunes. I'm a West Coast guy, so we had Dumont dunes and Glamis and things like that. And so we'd ride four-wheelers and from a young age, everybody always said I was an adrenaline junkie. And it's funny because I'm not. It's one of the biggest misconceptions about my life, or maybe I'm just in complete denial that I am, but I don't know what it was. I liked riding fast, and I loved just trying to see how fast I could go, whether it was on a scooter, under the power of just a big hill, or whether it was on a four-wheeler. But yeah, even at the age of 5, man, I started, my mom wasn't super stoked on it, but I started racing. My older brother was racing dirt bikes, and I was like pouting in the pits at some of the races that I was going to. And I was like, well, this is bullshit. I want to race too. And so like at 6 years old, my dad bought me a couple of 60s, is what they were called, Kawasaki 60s. And I was near the end of my motocross racing, when I was only like 10 or 11, I was racing against I was at the track at the same time as Bubba Stewart, Travis Pastrana,
Wow.
Ricky Carmichael, even Ricky Carmichael and stuff. And so, yeah, dude. So it started all the way back in motocross, and then from there, moved into four wheels, and I can tell you how that happened.
So what you're telling me, and we're gonna get to the bottom of this, but what you're telling me is you jump out of planes and helicopters. You love to go fast, but you're not an adrenaline junkie. Something doesn't add up. But we're gonna get to the bottom of it. All right. So you said we get into the four-wheel stuff, but I do want to ask, when you transition from bike to car, whether it be a late model or an Xfinity car, you do it, you run well. Like, how are you able to do that? Obviously, people can say, and I'm sure you might say, a car is a car is a car, but there's so much more than that, I'm sure. So how are you able to just jump from here to here and find results?
I'd like to think I'm talented. I dedicated I dedicated my entire life. I tell people all the time that I went, I didn't have much formal education. I went to the school. I went to the school of hard knocks, right? I went to the school. Something I just came up with. It was a cool little tagline. I was like, I'm going to use that. I went to the school of life, and I'm still enrolled, man. It's like, sure. It's still class in session, So, I mean, where I think my skill developed, though, if I had to be super critical, because I do believe I've always had a pretty big talent of being able to get in a lot of different cars and either win or drive up front, or just hop in any equipment and do better in it than most,
exactly.
outperform teammates and stuff. And believe it or not, how it started is and my father would even admit it, because not to put anybody down, I didn't come from money. Okay. So we did not have a lot of money. We were still like, I always say, like, high class white trash, like we were like, in the late 90s, I guess you could say upper middle class, but we we didn't have the money that some of these other kids that I was racing against, man, like showing up with big trailers and new chassis and motors. Like my dad and I were on a budget, and you know, we were on a budget because of a normal family. Like my dad couldn't spend money and explain it to my mother. Kart racing was stupid expensive as it was even back then. And so my dad couldn't provide me with the best equipment. So I was always on a chassis that was like a couple years older. I was always on a motor that we were like developing on our own. And I had to learn how to drive. My first couple years at the local kart track right here in Vegas, when I started karting when I was like 10 years old, it's kind of a cool, traumatic story. Like hopefully it'll make a good Netflix documentary or movie someday. But I wanted to be the best. Even at 10 years old, I knew at 10 years old, I wanted to focus my career on being a professional racing driver. And I had made that conscious decision at the age of 10. And, but I was racing at this local track, and man, I mean, I would be crying. My dad and I would be fighting. I was racing this local kid who was like the local champion. And for 2 years, man, I couldn't beat him. And we knew he was a cheater. We were like, he's not this much better than me. I'm better than him. I would only win 1 out of 5 races, but I could never win a championship until he finally got caught cheating. Wow. And he disappeared from motorsports after that. He was kind of a punk, got in and out of trouble. But it was even frustrating. I remember I felt robbed. I was like, man, I knew I was better than him. I knew I could beat him, but he was cheating all along, like big time, like bigger motor and drilling out this. And because it was just a little kart club, they would never tech anybody. There was politics. His dad knew the tech guy. I mean, like I learned about drama and politics to the age of 10, you know, to where it can ruin your life. You can be jaded for the rest of your life, you know, over stuff like this. Right. I mean, So I was dedicating my time, and I was having a different life than a normal child. And it was getting, you know, I was getting robbed at times, you know? So again, it's a long, you know, make a long story long, where I think my skill developed was I was always driving harder. I was always on the limit to try to beat guys that were either cheating or had better equipment than me. And then when I finally progressed in motorsports to be in good equipment, it showed. You know, then I was dominant, or I would win, you know, win by big margins because I finally had equal equipment.
So I guess, sorry to interrupt there, but like, do you think it seems like that kid, whoever he was, the cheater there, kind of drove you to find it in you to be the best you that you can be, right?
Yeah, man. It's really cool that you said that, because I didn't really think of it that way. But you know, some people have said to me like, man, you don't give up. You're just not willing to give up. And gosh, man. And if somebody asked me, you know, a lot of times it's probably just ingrained in who you are, or your upbringing, or your, you know, my parents, my father especially. But, you know, my relentless determination might go back to when I was a child getting robbed of what I knew I you know, should have had. And I was like, but you know what? I always knew that if you stayed with it, eventually the right thing would happen too. So.
No, I feel you on that. And it's kind of, you know, this is a smaller podcast. I started this, geez, I don't even, probably 8 months now, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's smaller podcast. I'm building it, man. We got a good following on Twitter. We're starting to get bigger on YouTube, but you know, like that's the thing that drives me is it's obviously not like watching, you know, whoever cheat their way up, but it's watching these other shows that got there, that have made it, right? These other podcasts around that have a big
and they
following.
Had to start somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I believe myself. I know I can get to that point, right? So for me, I feel the same way, man. It's a grind, but you know, you have it in you to do it. And that's kind of what I'm getting out of your story there.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to move into a little bit. We'll stray a little bit off the racing stuff. How about this daredevil mentality? I know you said you don't have it, but like where does that come from in you? And how did you start, like, you know what? I think I'm going to jump out of some planes and helicopters. Like, where did that come from?
You know, there's honestly a more emotional and spiritual side to it that I'm very honest and just transparent. You know, it's like, life is short, so you might as well share your, you know, I don't understand people that I respect people that keep a very private life, because there's good reason for that sometimes. But at the same time, I try to find balance. Like I keep certain things in life private the best I can, but you know, with my journey in life, I just like to be honest and transparent about it. So dude, I was depressed. I was sad. I was not happy with life. And as a motorsports driver, as any athlete could probably relate to this, dude, even going back to when I was in my 20s, I hated birthdays. I could not stand getting older because there was always those people going, oh, you're getting older now, man. Your window's closing. You better, oh, well, if you don't get into a race car soon, it's going to be over for you. Like, I just couldn't stand always hearing that shit, man. And so I was getting older. And so to tell you a little bit about why and how I started skydiving, I was working as the chief instructor at Dream Racing at a driving school, right?
Okay.
And I had started working there in 2011, going into the beginning of 2012. It was shortly after the economic collapse, which destroyed Vegas. It like destroyed my family, destroyed my racing career, which was on a great path. Like I was on my way. I was being called by Roger Penske development programs. I had, even though I didn't make it through even though I didn't continue on with Red Bull, I won a lot of races. It was a lot of, politics. It wasn't necessarily performance based. I was winning all the biggest races on the West Coast in super late model. I was still hopping in and out of IndyCar stuff sometimes and running up front, top 5 with low level equipment. I mean, so people were like, man, this guy can drive anything. And my career was moving forward. It was looking like it was going to be okay. And then the economic collapse and it all came crashing down, and it was like, shit. And then 2009, man, the girl that I'm dating, her father dies suddenly. And so like life shifted, man. Like I was helping her and her family. And then I tried to get a job as a racing instructor to pay bills because I didn't have any money. And then like 2010, 2011 comes around and like things are just, I mean, we're still in a recession. Racing is just not an option I'm doing like 1 or 2 races a year. I would do a big go-kart race or a sports car race just to try to stay relevant, to show, hey, I'm not giving up. I'm still here. I'm not, just because I'm not racing doesn't mean I'm like getting a job selling real estate. Like I'm still in this game, So that's what I always try to do. And so I get a job working at a racing school, and then dude, before you know it, 5 years flies by, man. And
fast too.
It goes by fast, dude. And I was so unhappy with my life, and I wasn't ungrateful. Like it was super cool. I was traveling the country. I was like the lead instructor for a Bridgestone Teen Drive Smart program. I was the chief instructor at Dream Racing. Like I had some cool stuff going on for my age, and I liked the title, chief instructor of this big, racing experience in Vegas. But I wasn't, dude, it was like, I just wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And one of the guys that owned the track, he's this really wild, crazy South African guy. He was just like one of the owners. And I didn't know he was one of the owners when I first met him, like, years earlier. And it took about a year until I realized, like, oh, he's like his family and him, and he's one of the investors and one of the part owners. I had trained him to be a driving instructor. And then I'm hanging out with the guy, and he's got his own helicopter. He's a base jumper, a wingsuit pilot. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
Who is this hidden guy?
Who is this guy? And I'm hanging out with him. We become like best friends. We're working together every day, shoulder to shoulder. And so he starts like inviting me on adventures and hanging out with him. And I'm watching base jumpers fly wingsuits off cliffs. And, I'm like, and I was terrified, man. I would look at this stuff and I was like, oh my God, I was inspired. I wanted to experience it, but I was scared. I wasn't an adrenaline junkie would put the suit on, the wingsuit with no experience, and send it. Let's go off the cliff. Yeah. That to me is an adrenaline junkie, where I always like to say I'm a life junkie. I'm a calculated athlete. Like I want to live. I don't have a death wish. But I was inspired and wanted to do it, but I was scared. And so, like again, super transparent and honest. I was in a relationship for many years. It ended. I'm turning 30 years old, a little bit of like quarter life crisis, man. I'm just like, oh, dude, I'm not happy. And some of the other instructors were like, hey, dude, we're going skydiving. You're coming with, right? And I was like, oh man, I guess I have to now. Yeah. And I went to the drop zone. It's called a drop zone. I go to the drop zone with the guy that I was working with at Dream Racing, who was the wingsuiter. And I did my first tandem skydive in 2014. The very next morning, I did my first solo. Man. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm a little bit obsessive, like obsessed. I like to say passionate, not obsessed. So
good word choice. I like
Yeah,
that.
good word choice. So I did a tandem. I was terrified. I was absolutely scared. I went to the guy's house that night, the guy that took me for the tandem. I did ground school for 6 hours that night.
Wow.
And I soloed the very next morning and then got my skydive license a few weeks later.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And so this question then will kind of segue perfectly from what you just said. So for me, I'm like that early you that was like, man, I appreciate the heck out of that, but I don't think I could ever do that. Right. So I get that from from you saying that. But at the same time, I'm a kid, right? I hate flying, scared of it, hate it, can't do it. Like, not that I can't do it. I actually was just on a plane like a couple weeks ago. Came back from Louisiana, but I hate it. I'll do like the roller coasters at certain places. Like that doesn't scare me, but something, man, I don't know what it is. I just don't like to fly. So my question then would be, what advice would you give someone like me who, it gets nervous at something, or kind of like, has a guard up for something that they might not want to take that step towards, dip their toe in the water? Like, what advice would you give that person?
That you're going to die where you're sitting. So you might as well die trying.
Okay. I like that. I like that. But I don't know. I
You
want
got
to
to
say,
be
yeah,
again,
go.
there's a lot of cliche things, right? Like that's my own little quote that came up by accident when I was surviving in a jungle on a show called Castaways. And
Yes.
so I was terrified, and I was like, shit, I was gonna die. I was gonna die physically. Like I was it was a survival situation. I was gonna die where I was sitting, so I might as well die trying to survive,
Yeah.
and then that's not enough for people. People go, well, I don't need to take that risk. And it is true, man, because I've seen it. But and it sounds cliche, but it is so true, man. But everything you want is on the other side of fear. And it doesn't necessarily mean just that, like, you don't have to become a skydiver. But if you are terrified of that, you absolutely should do it, because it could change your life.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, even little hurdles in your life, whether it be relationship, business, professional, you will be able to push past those things, because people carry fear through every aspect of their life.
Hmm.
Okay. From getting up out of bed in the morning to take on the day, to jumping out of an airplane, to there's so many extremes, right? From the
Yep.
people that defend our nation to the people
Absolutely.
that just sit behind a desk. Everybody's got a struggle that they're dealing with. Everybody has fears. I mean, all of us, man. And it's just, if you're willing to push past some of those fears, you'll see that the beautiful thing on the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
And it will change other aspects of your life. So that's what to get more elaborate, then that's what I try to inspire people, to tell them, if you're willing to push past just some of your fears, and I still have to try every day. People think I'm fearless. They think, oh, you do anything, you're a skydiver. I get scared, man, just dealing with making a phone call that has to
Hmm.
do with money, or like a sponsor. Like, I mean, I get stopped by fears all day. But I do like to believe that, because of the things I do in life, I still have to talk to myself about it. I still have to push myself. But if you're willing to do things that push you past your fears, a lot of other things in life become easier,
I, I think that's it. I think that advice is what would get me to, obviously, like I said, I do it, right? I fly. I hate it though. But to realize, like, to get the best out of myself, the best out of my life, I got to take the chance, right? And I
Yeah,
think that's kind of that's what I got out of it, and I appreciate that. I appreciate those words, because I'm telling you, man, like, stuff like that helps me. I'm telling you.
good,
I'm in a
good.
freaking plane, sweating my ass off.
You should
Like,
try jumping out. If you jumped out of a plane a few times, you might be like, oh, this is great. I don't mind sitting in it.
I think so. I think you're right. Can't get out of it fast enough. Try jumping out of it, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, but so let's go a little deeper with the skydiving stuff.
Okay.
So, what, I don't even know, 3 weeks ago now was the Las Vegas thing.
Yep.
So
Just
for
over two,
those.
almost 3 weeks ago.
Perfect. So for those who are listening, might not have seen this, about 3 weeks ago, Matt was ready for his Las Vegas race in the Xfinity series. He was ready. They're about to call his name. Where's Matt? Where is the guy? Oh, that's him falling right down, right on the track. So he skydived for his intro, which was awesome. Um, how how do you set that up? Like, how do you go to NASCAR and you're like, hey, so yeah, for my intro, yeah, Kyle Busch is gonna tell everybody to boo him. I want to jump out of it. Like, how do you do that?
So it's cool, man, because man, life's definitely made up of well, I mean, I don't know, not life, but just especially professional life, made up of relationships.
Yep.
It's the relationships you make along the way. And I like to, and the reason I'm telling this story is because it tells a bigger story, right? It's about being a good person. It's about staying true to the course. And believe it or not, this is relevant because it's a matter of creating relationships and being a good person, and even though things don't go your way, that you just you stay true to yourself, and you keep good relationships, keep a good reputation, and that's kind of what helped make all this possible, man. So you go to one of the key points of contact. He's so important because he's the one who really helped kind of put a lot of the program together. A guy named Jeff Motley. So Jeff Motley is the VP of communications at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and has been for like, I don't know, almost 20 years. And so I've known the guy since I was a kid, and he's always believed in me. So like when I was, when I was just in go-karts, then I was on my way through the Formula One development program with Red Bull. And so here I was, and he was a fan and a friend. He saw all the hardship I went through and knew that I worked really hard, and that I was just a good person, so he always followed my career, and I always stayed friends with him. And then Nason Gray. Nason is the VP of marketing. He's a friend of many years, and worked with him side by side at Dream Racing. And he watched me go through a lot of ups and downs, with work and life and everything. And so he was always there and followed me. And I just always kept a good relationship with him. A guy named Mike Young, who is a marketing guy here in Las Vegas, works for LV.net. He kind of got hired by my sponsor, Auto Parts for Less, to do some marketing stuff. He knew some people at Elsco. Like, it was all just relationships. And it was extremely difficult, to the point where when we got the go ahead, we honestly all looked at each other and went, can you believe this? Can you believe they said yes?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's
and
awesome.
I got this sinking feeling in my stomach, because it was like, once we got an email and it said, yeah, hey, so NASCAR said, okay. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, for real?
Oh, now I have to do this.
Okay.
Oh,
So now I have to do this. So how it started, I called Jeff Motley and said, hey, what if I wanted to skydive into my race? Is that even possible? Would like NASCAR even allow that? Is there like, he was like, well, shit, I think that'd be kind of cool.
I love how like I came in pictured like, oh, I'm sure like, he definitely didn't, but maybe he just like was out of the blue, like, hey, how would this be? It's awesome. So keep going.
Yeah. So I think it was, I don't even think it was a phone call, or I honestly can't remember, because, I was racing, it's in the middle of the season. It was, it was when I was only a couple races into Xfinity. Honestly, dude, I didn't even have the Vegas race confirmed on my calendar.
Wow.
But I knew I was going to make it happen. So so there you go, dude. That's determination.
Yeah.
My sponsor was not committed to the Vegas race. Didn't know if he'd have the money. Was not on my calendar. Was not in our budget. And I was like, no, I'm racing my hometown race. I don't care if I have to I was like, I don't care if I have to finance it on my own freaking credit card. I'm racing my hometown race. And I just knew that if I said, okay, I'm doing this, I'd pull it together, And so anyway, so I call Jeff Motley. I go, do you think I could do this? Would it even be allowed? He's like, well, yeah, I think, I don't see why not. I mean, I was like, really? And he's like, well, you need this, you need that. He goes, we need this person's approval, that person's approval. So then we went to Elsco. Elsco is the title sponsor. They have the rights to the race. If they don't want some driver skydiving in, then they can say no. And it stops right there. So luckily, of course, we knew some guy had a connection at Elsco. I was racing in Texas during the Elsco race. So somebody went up to a VP, some CEO at Elsco, and said, hey, this is Matt Jaskol. He's racing the Texas race. He's also a professional skydiver, and he wants to skydive into his hometown race in Vegas. Would you guys be okay with that? And Elsco was like, we love it. That sounds rad. Oh my God, cool. So then we go to the Speedway and go, okay, Elsco is in. And then I had to go to my sponsor and convince my sponsor it'd be a good thing because he wasn't even fully on board. Even my own sponsor was, oh, sorry, he was like, why are we doing this? What's the point of it? You know, why do you want to do that? And, you know, so I had to get hit. I had to get him on board, and then he said yes. And then so once we got everything, and then I had to get a ground crew, like my ground crew, I had to get a guy named Jim Dolan, who's like a, 20-year veteran and has all the all the paperwork that you got to fill out. Dude, it's a lot of entities. We had to go to the FAA, to the TSA, because it's a large event. We had to go to Nellis Air Force Base, McCarran International Airport. There's a lot of paperwork that you have to file to make something like this happen. I mean, it was a pretty big mission. So we go to Motley and we go, okay, we got everything, man. We got this. We had to go to the helicopter company because I needed a helicopter, not a plane. There's only one helicopter company that'll really do it because they have an exclusivity at the Speedway. They did parachute operations years ago and it went bad. They didn't want to do it ever again. So we had to talk to the owner and the pilot. And they were like, okay, we'll do it. And it was just like, all right, oh my God, everybody's saying yes. We can't believe it. So Jeff Motley goes, hey man, let me take this to NASCAR and we'll see what they say. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right. And I'm honestly expecting NASCAR to come back and be like, yeah, no.
I would see the same. Yeah. I would think the same.
Like a no-name NASCAR driver, like NASCAR doesn't know me. They don't care who I am right now. Like I'm a new guy, even though I have a story, even though I have a storied background, ex-teammates with AJ Allmendinger, Red Bull guy, but I'm nobody in the world of NASCAR, Mm-hmm. And so I can see NASCAR being like, who, what? No, that's not gonna happen. So Jeff Motley writes us back and goes, okay, I got word back from NASCAR, and we're all reading it together. He goes, NASCAR is okay, in capital letters, with Matt diving into his race under one exception. And we're all like, what is that? That he has a backup driver in case he gets injured. Okay. That was it, dude. Was it. So the jokes ensued, right? The jokes were like, well, NASCAR's desperate for ratings when they're willing to let the no-name NASCAR driver skydive into the race as long as there's a, it's like, wait, all right, if Jaskol bounces, the show's got to go on. So make sure you got another backup driver just in case. Like we were joking.
You see the Chris Angel thing at like halftime of the Raiders game. Like basically he for the halftime show, Chris Angel,
didn't see it, but I heard about it.
Yeah, he's literally like dangling from the top of the stadium, and they're like, well, if he doesn't make it out by halftime, we're dropping him. Like we don't know what to tell you.
That was kind of how it went, dude. They said yes, and again, not to sound derogatory, but we were like, wow, NASCAR's willing to do anything if they said yes to the no-name NASCAR guy. So they said yes, and obviously it went off. It went perfectly.
Yeah, it sure did.
Which was amazing. And I mean, the only thing more perfect would be to have a better finish. Obviously, even I can relate to some of the haters out there that were like, oh yeah, I saw the Skydiver, but you finished 27th. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, you're not wrong. But if you know our situation, the budget, the equipment that we're in, to start 34th on a track that I have never raced a NASCAR in, I had never sat in that particular car, even though it's an Xfinity car. People don't realize that NASCAR teams own multiple chassis and cars. Literally bolted in it was a different chassis than I've ever freaking driven for Carl Long and MBM, and drove forward all the way up to like 20th at one point. We had some tire issues. We had to drive 100 laps on one set of tires that went green the whole race, and we still finished 27th and had some fast laps. And so to me, that was still a win.
When I looked at it, I thought the exact same, because I would say real fans know that situation, know that car, know that team, and know, and that's honestly the mindset of what I look with a lot of the teams. It's like, I know who is good because you can tell this person is going to get the most out of their equipment. And, I saw you do the skydive. I'm like, man, this guy's freaking awesome. Like I got to keep track of this guy when he's racing. And then you drive up 27th, starting 34th in a 38, 39 car field. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. So,
thanks,
dude, I was impressed. So what do you think? Because obviously I'm a diehard NASCAR fan. I love to see new guys get in the sport. What is kind of the NASCAR Xfinity goal? Like, would you want a full-time ride?
Oh yeah.
Or
Oof,
yeah,
big
yeah,
time.
go for it. Go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. So man, I hate to say it, man, at my age, I have a birthday tomorrow, which I'm not stoked to talk about just because, I'm getting older, and it is still, to me, it's still kind of a cool story, man. It's kind of like the story that, I should have been here 10 years ago, but it didn't happen, but that's okay. Life
Mhm.
took me on a different journey, and I have some pretty amazing stories to tell during that time. And here I am. I never gave up, and I'm racing again, and I'm still fast. I can still drive halfway through a field in a car I've never touched. I mean, look at what we did at Mid Ohio, man. Started
Yep.
40th.
Hell yeah.
I had
18th, right?
Yeah, dude, I hadn't been to Mid Ohio in like 12 years. I had never shifted gears in an Xfinity car and went straight to the green flag and drove halfway through the field.
Yep.
Like, I think I'd like to say, like, hey man, give me a little bit, just give me a little bit of seat time and some solid equipment,
And
and
practice,
I'll
right?
be all
Like,
right. And I'll
yeah.
be quick. So anyways, the goal would be to be in a full-time ride. At my age, like, I'm not trying to go IndyCar racing. I'd love to do the Indy 500. And I honestly think that at my age, I'm still young enough. I'm still in my 30s that I can still go do the Indy 500 and be competitive in a good car. So I would really, that is still a massive goal of mine, that just like making the Vegas race happen, I will not settle in life unless I can do the Indy 500. So yeah, but the goal would be, I don't care if it's truck, Xfinity, we just want to be in a full-time ride. And my sponsor, autopartsforless.com, the guy's working hard to not only take over the world with his new business, it's a multi-vendor platform. A lot of people don't realize that it's not an auto parts, store. It is the Amazon of auto parts. It is a
Mhm.
multi-seller platform for everything auto parts, from scooters up to airplanes. And that's a huge undertaking, man. That's a massive amount of undertaking. We're talking millions of SKUs. It's, that's going to be uploaded to the website, and he's already growing. He's a publicly traded company now, looking to get upgraded to the NASDAQ next year, which is a big deal. But in the meantime, he wants to go racing. It's good for his
Yeah. Hell
brand.
yeah.
It's good for his brand, and it's good for me. And so we're working towards, we're negotiating, we're talking to see if we can put together enough money to see me in a truck and or Xfinity full time. I think what could happen realistically next year, and what I can see, is a little bit more of what happened this year. I can see me doing like 7 to maybe 15, whatever but maybe I do like half a season in Xfinity, and maybe I do a cup start or two here or there on a select track to get signed off, and then potentially go straight to a full season of cup in 2023. So that's something that's already been talked about with the sponsor, and what could be realistic. If money is really good, because racing is very, financially driven, for those that don't know, but most people listening probably do understand that.
Yeah.
If we had the budget, we'd probably go straight to a Xfinity or truck deal tomorrow and sign it up, but we just don't have the budget. So we'll just have to see, and unfortunately, corporate budgets, or just teams alone. Like, luckily, my sponsor is the corporate budget, and our calendar's open. We're just going to make it happen whenever we can. But even with teams, things start getting sealed up. Seats start becoming, scarce going into November, which we're almost approaching. So, I don't think you'll hear me announcing or talking about anything until even in January, if I'm honest. I think January will be more realistic, that I can maybe hopefully announce, like, hey, maybe I get to do the Daytona race, Xfinity or truck in February, so that I'm there. I'm showing that we're there for the season opener, and then do select races throughout the year, So
Yeah. Hey man, we're rooting for you. I mean, that's for sure. And I hope a lot of people watch this episode, because I think, obviously they'll be able to see, you know, the results you get, which we've talked about, but also the kind of guy you are. And I can just tell, that's a lot of people don't want to hear it, but a lot of it is who the guy is driving that car. And just talking to you, man, I'm a huge fan. I'm rooting for you so bad.
I'm rooting for you too, man. I'm a fan already. I know.
Appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you before we started. I was going to say, hey, tell me about the podcast. Why and how did you start it? There's always a bigger why than a how. And so hearing a little bit about your story, telling me about what you're trying to do, man. I hope it skyrockets, man.
I hope so. I hope so. It's I I obviously don't work in what I went to college for right now. But anything,
People rarely do. That's okay.
yeah, exactly. But if I could break, into the NASCAR field somehow, man, I'd be so grateful. So
Nice.
that's why you do stuff like this. And you made a good point earlier when you said the relationships are so huge, and that's another reason I'm doing this. It's to meet guys like you, to meet guys like a Mike Massaro, who has been so good and helpful in this, and just to meet everybody that you can, and to build these relationships. I like you said, it's so important. And it's just fun. It's fun to meet new people, to chat, to talk about interests and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. So like I said at the beginning, we're gonna do a game, right? And
Okay.
you sort of answered on some of these, but not all of them. So we got to do it. So
Okay.
this game is called. Are you ready for this? It's called Has Matt Jaskol Done It? He's done a
Okay.
lot. I mean, we've learned you've done a lot. But have you done these things?
Okay.
So here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
All right. So the first question, yeah, I think maybe some of the listeners have done this, but has Matt Jaskol cliff jumped?
Um, Honestly, no.
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 Okay. All right.
Because I'm not an adrenaline junkie.
Oh, would you
I
be interested in cliff jumping?
no, okay. I guess I had like I've jumped off a very small cliff, like 20 feet or less, like into the lake, and I
Yeah.
hated it.
Really?
It sketched the shit out of me, and it hurt when I landed. Like I'll jump off cliffs with a parachute.
Yeah. All right. All right. I more meant the water thing. But
No,
all right,
I'm
that's
not. I'm
fair.
not a cliff jumper.
That's fair. That's fair. So hey, that's why we're asking the questions, right?
That's awesome.
All right. So second one, um, oh man, I mean this purposefully. So have
Okay.
you ever purposefully done a flip in a car?
No, no,
No.
I haven't. No.
Okay. All right. How about any tricks? How about a 360? It's a little.
Yes.
Okay. You've done.
Yes. No, I've done some pretty cool tricks, like some cool stunt driving stuff, like high, very high speed, like 60 mile an hour, e-brake, into reverse while never going below 50 miles an hour, and then back straight again. So yeah, I mean, I've pulled off some cool stuff in a car that I wasn't even sure if I could pull off. And then when I did, everybody's mind was blown. I was like, yeah, look at that.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So there it is. How about this one? This was the one I kind of said you touched a little bit on it, but you seem to have gone through with all the stuff. So has Matt Jaskol ever said, "Nah, I'm too scared to do that"?
Yes.
All right. What is it?
Skydiving. I mean, yes, I did it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like said, no, no, I'm too scared. I'm not gonna. That's the one. That one draws the line.
Probably. I can't think of anything. I've never bungee jumped, and I don't know if I ever
Okay.
will.
All right. All right.
So yeah, there's a couple things, dude. I don't think I won't go in a hot air balloon unless I have a parachute.
Oh,
Like
all
if
right. That's
like
good.
I've jumped out of a lot of hot air balloons and I've never landed in one. It's kind of a funny little side note about me. So it's like I have taken off in a hot air balloon nearly 100 times. I don't know what it's like to land in one. So if you told me like, hey Jaskol, let's go fly in this hot air balloon, I'd be like, nah, man, I'm good.
All right. All right. So there it is. So there it is. The hot air balloon. He's got up. He's got up. He's got way up there. But he has not landed. And it seems like he's not going to do it. All right.
Nope.
Last one here. Has Matt Jaskol ever broken a bone?
Not like no. I'm gonna knock on
Not
wood.
knock on it. I was gonna say I have that in
No.
parentheses to knock on the wood. I've got it here
So
too. I'm knocking on the wood.
I've had some minor fractures.
Okay.
Like one skydive that I landed bad, like on this beach landing, and it like cracked my ankle, and I thought for sure it was broken, and the doctor was like, nope, not broken, but looks like I got a hairline fracture. So it knock on wood again. All of my years of motocross, skydiving, racing, I never broke a bone.
I love it. I love
It's
it.
weird. Yeah.
Ditto here, and I'll knock on the wood as well. I
Cool.
played sports all my life. Played little bit something about me. I played college soccer. My 4 years. Well, had COVID. I just graduated last year, so the COVID didn't let us play our 4th year, but played college soccer for 3+ years. Growing up, played soccer, played baseball, basketball, pretty much everything. Never broke a bone here either.
Wow,
So
dude. Yeah.
we'll knock on the wood, like we said. And yeah, so there it is. I appreciate that. What'd you think of that one? What'd you think of that game there?
That was good. Actually, I love it. I
All
got
right.
I was nervous. I was more nervous about that than I was like, oh, what's he gonna ask me? What am I gonna
No, it's all good stuff. Yeah, we try to do a game every episode. I think this podcast, like I said, I want to get out there, but I want to be creative, So if I can change the ways we do it.
maybe start the show with the game to loosen it up.
Okay.
And that way they don't unveil any answers during the show. I love the game. The game was I think it was rad. That might be a good show starter.
I like that. I like that because after I heard you say like I'm too scared to do that, I was kind of like, well, he's kind of told me that he'll kind of go through, but I like that. I like that.
The game could be like a little icebreaker. You get to know this person, and then you can use what they said and kind of dive into what they talk about later.
I like it. I will say a little bit of rebuttal for both of us, from myself and you. I sometimes the guests aren't ready to play. They don't come ready to play at the beginning.
That's a good that should be a good opener for you too. Man, if you're coming on the show, you better be coming.
You better be ready to play. We don't mess around. So I like that.
Awesome.
I do want to. So we're pretty much we're almost out of time here, but I did want to ask. You mentioned the Survivor you were on. Was that it?
I was on a show called Castaways on ABC. It aired about 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And it involved surviving in a deserted jungle island without food or shelter for 42 days. And it wasn't Survivor. It wasn't a game show. It wasn't a competition. It was like a social experiment and a documentary. And the goal was just to make it to the end. You didn't know when rescue day was. You knew that it could be up to 2 months. And I made it to rescue day, which was 42 days. I wish I had a photo you want me to do that really quick? Dude,
yeah.
Here, watch this. Wait, hold on. So stand by, and so here I'm going to share a photo of what I looked like the day I got rescued. How's that?
Okay, yeah, let's see this. Quick question on that. Did some people not get rescued?
Yeah, so 12 human beings started the show. We were spread across like 17 miles. It was, dude, it's more than I could even explain. It would take a whole nother episode for me to explain everything, but.
All right, well, whoa, no way.
Dude, that was me after 42 days of starving in a jungle, man.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's like, that's wild, man. Like Tom Hanks, but worse.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. That's pretty awesome, though.
Thanks, man.
I don't know what I was expecting.
Get rid of that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but I'm a fan. So all right, so I'm gonna book it then. We're gonna book that. We're gonna get you back on the show. And it seems like
I'll tell you how, and because there was it ties into motorsports, man. Like how I got called to do the show. I turned it down at first, and then ended up doing it, and it ended up being the most life-altering experience and most painful but most beautiful.
I was gonna say, I mean, I saw the picture. It's more than life-altering.
It was pretty bad, but it was the greatest experience I ever did in my life, and
awesome.
it changed who I was. I'm definitely a different human being than I was before that show, and I'll tell you about it sometime.
How can I watch that?
It was on, so it was a big ABC show, which was pretty cool. And then it was on Hulu for a long time. Then it was like, it went off Hulu, but I've heard recently, I've had people say, hey man, Castaways is back on Hulu. So it's called Castaways. You can Google it, and there's still there's quite a few different, like, you might have to like sign up. You might maybe got to pay $5 to get a membership for the month, or just one time, but there is actually quite a few different ways out there still. If you type in Castaways ABC show or ABC Castaways, usually you can find the episodes, and dude, like I said, you should watch it sometime. Gives you some insight into my life, because it was a documentary, and so like it kind of told a little bit of my story and my life and who I am, and then you kind of watch me change over the course of 42 days living in a jungle. So pretty wild.
All right, I'm gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna watch it before the next time we have you on the show, and then we're gonna talk about We're going to talk about the show. And then at that time, I'm booking it. You're going to have a ride, and we're going to talk about that too.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. Love it. But ladies and gentlemen, that was Johnny on the track. This has been Matt Jaskol. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. You've been a blast. That's for sure.
I appreciate letting me share my story. And for those listening, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we're rooting for you. And we can't wait to hear from you again. All right.
Thank you.
Peace.